Tonight's commentary is on an anti-Super Mario 64 video by a user named Toxiquid. Let's begin.
I may be spoiled rotten with quite frankly better 3D platformers with gems like A Hat in Time, Mario Odyssey, and hell, even Banjo-Kazooie, but my god, this game is terrible in my opinion.
Your opening disclaimer doesn't make much sense, and it comes off like you're claiming you dislike the game because you've played better games, which is utterly illogical. Mind you, if you were to say that you felt this game was unimpressive, or you felt like these other games were more worth going back to, that would make more sense, because that statement is totally relative. However, whether or not a game is good really isn't. You aren't debating whether or not it's the greatest game of all time, you're just determining if it's a quality product or not, after all. Are you seriously attempting to imply that you wouldn't take issue with the things you're going to discuss in this video had you not played those other games? Because if not, then what was the point of this opening? And by the way, it's not as if he, for example, compared and contrasted elements of these games to their counterparts in Mario 64 in order to explain why he prefers them in those titles. Instead, all we get is a brief mention of Mario being slipperier in this game than he is in Odyssey.
Mario is slippery while moving, like abnormally slippery when compared to his more recent outings.
Which, given I haven't played Odyssey, I can't say if that's true or not, but I'll grant you that's true just for the sake of argument. And another part near the end of the video where you say that playing the game in 2020 especially makes it not fun.
But when actually getting to play it, especially in the year 2020, it's not fun because of how everything was just stacked against me in terms of controls, in terms of level design, in terms of the camera. Everything just wanted me to fail, and I hated that.
But again, that just begs the question of, if you had played the game earlier, would you have been fine with everything being stacked against you? Would you have been fine playing a game where everything feels stacked against you on the condition you had been playing it just a few years before you did? Anyway, he goes on to say the main issue with the game boils down to the controls.
I know that is a huge claim to make, but I believe I found the root of my problem. It's the controls. They actually just suck. And no, it's not limited to one area, or it's not just one or two main problems. It's everything as a whole.
Before going on to say the following about how Mario moves in the game.
I'm not gonna beat around the bush. Mario is slippery while moving, like abnormally slippery when compared to his more recent outings. This is a huge problem because it makes doing precise platforming, which is required in some areas, nearly impossible. I cannot tell you how many times I died on that first Bowser level because of how stupidly small the platform is to get that first red coin, but we're gonna get to that later.
And yet in your footage you managed to get the red coin without any issue whatsoever. Oh, and as for the whole he'll get back to it later thing, he shows himself going after the same coin a little bit later in the video, and you can tell it's a different clip because the live count is different, and he doesn't even make it to the platform before the clip cuts, so I have no idea if he died here or not. I'm not accusing you of being dishonest or anything, however, what you're showing us simply doesn't match up with what you're saying, and this isn't even the only time such an issue occurs. Look at this part.
The third one introduces these gravity-defying walkways as well as some obstacles that seem unavoidable, like a piranha plant that shows up at the beginning and a Whomp that guards a linearly small hallway.
You claim that piranha plant is unavoidable, but the footage shows you avoiding it. It must be avoidable. You managed to do such.
See, how the whole wing cap thing works is like this. You jump up and get a running start and such, see, back to that whole momentum thing I said earlier, and the elevation you are at dictates how high you can go, but not how low you can go. So if you're at a lower elevation trying to reach a high platform, you can't just go from point A to B, nah, you gotta find point C that's in there in between those elevations, because you can't reach that high despite it being called the wing cap. These dinky wings don't allow you to fly, they allow you to glide. Why isn't it called the glide cap?
Okay, first off, even if what you're saying is true, it would still be totally accurate to call it the wing cap because it's a hat with wings on it.
That aside, I can cleanly separate the levels into 3 distinct styles. There are the gauntlets, which really don't have any big open areas and just focus on individual challenges, like Lethal Lava Land and Rainbow Ride, the water levels, which has a whopping 3 in this category, being Dire Dire Docks, Jolly Roger Bay, and Wet Dry World, and what I'm calling the box gardens, which are just giant open areas to go around in, like Cool Cool Mountain, Bob-omb Battlefield, and Tiny Huge Island.
Wait a minute, why is Lethal Lava Land considered a gauntlet and not a box garden? Especially given you describe box gardens as wide open levels, but Lethal Lava Land is an incredibly open level. Now, later on, he does mention the lack of a safety cushion being something that gauntlet levels have in common.
That's why I hate gauntlet style levels so much. If and or when you make a mistake, you don't really have a little safety cushion you can reliably get back to. Tick-Tock Clock has a giant pit, Rainbow Ride has you fall from the sky, and Lethal Lava Land has lava.
However, there are safety nets in both Tick-Tock Clock and Lethal Lava Land. You can land on a previous part of the level because of its vertical nature. It's not the most reliable thing in the world, but it can be done. And as for Lethal Lava Land, you have a pretty big safety net from the lava that you don't have in the case of falling into a pit. That being the fact that falling into a pit is an instant kill, while falling into lava only takes off part of your health. Essentially, your safety net is the rest of your HP. And by the way, we can even see this in your video because there's a clip of you falling into some lava in Lethal Lava Land.
I assume since you're watching this, you've at least seen gameplay of Mario 64. If not, here, let me show you a star found in the second level of the game. This star is called Blast Away at the Wall. Sounds like you have to shoot yourself at a wall with a star on it, right? Welp, that's not the case, as you have to shoot yourself at this very random ass corner with no indication of where you have to shoot.
Okay, first off, it's called Blast Away the Wall, not Blast Away at the Wall. Second off, there was no difference between how you described what you thought the mission was going to be and what it actually was. You shoot a wall with a star in it. That is what the game wants you to do. Third off, there is an indication that's what you're supposed to do. It's called the title of the mission. This is the only cannon in Whomp's Fortress. So the amount of walls you could theoretically blast at is rather small, and the wall is so close by it's not far-fetched to assume naturally that is the one you are supposed to hit.
And some stars are very similar if you want this in terms of stupidity. It doesn't really get that much better. Tall Tall Mountain, my favorite level in the game, for some reason has a painting in the side of the mountain that takes you to a slide level. It's not marked at all, it's just a regular side of the wall in this mountain, and poof, there it goes.
Never mind how the painting ripples when Mario touches it, just as every other painting does in this game, and the area where the painting is so narrow that it's completely reasonable to assume a player would make contact with it even if they aren't intending to. To speak anecdotally, I know that can occur. That's how I discovered the painting the first time I played this game. I also want to point out that despite saying this, you praise the game for pulling this trick in the basement of Peach's castle via the entrance to Shifting Sandland.
TLDR, Peach's Castle treats you like a big kid and makes everything not only doable without a guide, but introduces amazing concepts that play around with the perception of entering levels. The first floor has Bob-omb Battlefield, Cool Cool Mountain, Whomp's Fortress, and Jolly Roger Bay, all in traditional paintings. But after that, they really screw with you how you can get into levels. Shifting Sandland is at a dead end of a basement.
Actually, that brings up another point as to why this would be perfectly reasonable for a player to find on their own. The game has already pulled this trick before in the form of the entrance to Shifting Sandland.
I can't say that all the levels are bad, honestly. Some have their redeeming factors. I think that Bob-omb Battlefield is great at introducing you to the language of Mario 64.
But I thought you hated this game. Why would you like a level that introduces you to it? This, again, just doesn't make any sense. Anyway, my final thoughts can be summed up as me pointing out this man did not critique Super Mario 64 all that well. Good night, and good luck.